You've all seen the polls, right? Yeah. Ignore the polls. Yeah. The only poll that counts is the poll on Election Day.
There are those already warning the right not to get too excited over poll results showing big wins for them against the left come the midterms. And all of those focuses down on the tidal wave of numbers and polls we are nailed with several times a day tell us just to keep listening and keep watching. Let's attack the tidal wave with the people who have a proven track record in such matters. Welcome to MidPoint, Assistant Director of the Quinnipiac University Polling Institute, the one called by many experts as the most accurate of all the numerical gatherings. Peter Brown joins us. Peter, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Peter, let's start out in Iowa, where not too long ago, Joni Ernst had a 5% lead over her opponent, Bruce Braley. Now, all of a sudden, Quinnipiac is calling it a dead heat. What happened?
Well, what happened is Mr. Braley is picking up some support. Again, you mentioned he was down 5 in a Quinnipiac poll last week. He's now even in the latest one that Quinnipiac released this morning. It was through last night's surveying. It's a tight race. It was a tight race then. It's a tight race now.
What's making the difference then that helped him make up some points? Anything specific?
Not a lot. I mean, to some degree, he's doing a little bit better among independents than he was doing. But it's just a tight race. I mean, the thing about campaigns is there's an ebb and flow to them. And, what we don't know is what side of the margin of error things work out. There's a margin of error in polls. In Quinnipiac's poll this morning, there's a 3.5% margin of error, which means that it could go anywhere from Braley being up 3.5 to Ernst being up 3.5. That's just the way these things work. But that's close. And we expect tomorrow night, it'll be late into the night till we know for sure who's going to win Iowa's Senate race.
Let me go to Colorado here. Cory Gardner's lead over Mark Udall is shrinking. He had a pretty good lead there for a while. So what do the numbers tell us as to why this is getting closer? Or is it, again, just a simple ebb and flow?
To some degree, it's a simple ebb and flow. He has a 2-point lead. He's been ahead by more. There may be a little bit, both in Colorado and Iowa, and some Democrats coming home. But again, these are very close races.
Is it fair to say that there's... Oh, no, please, go ahead, finish.
Especially in the case of Mr. Gardner, who's running against an incumbent, Mark Udall. So it's not surprising to see some coming home by Democrats as we get to the end, especially given the enormous amount of publicity that has occurred the last couple of weeks on the notion that the Republicans are going to win the Senate. They may well win the Senate, but a win by 1 vote is the same as a win by 500,000 votes.
With regard to Louisiana and Georgia, there are those who say that without a doubt these are going to go to runoffs and there's going to be legal action here. So close, do you see that as an inevitability?
We don't poll in either of those states, but like everybody else, I read the data. Louisiana is very likely to go to a runoff. And just make sure your viewers understand, that means that in the case of Louisiana and Georgia, if no candidate gets 50% of the vote tomorrow night, then the top 2 candidates in each of those states will run off in a special election later. The Louisiana race would be on December 6th, and Georgia's a little bit after that, I believe. This is not hugely unusual. This has happened before. But obviously, if the control of the U.S. Senate hangs in the balance, we could be waiting for 4 to 6 weeks.
Do you agree with those who say that there's absolutely no doubt here whatsoever that when it comes down to all of these different races here right now, that this is the Republicans' race to lose?
If the Republicans don't take the Senate tomorrow night, there are going to be a lot of disappointed Republicans. They've thought this was their opportunity. They look at race after race and see that things are more likely than not to go their way in terms of Senate control. But it's never over till it's over. And in the case of these races, there are many close ones. So it's not easy to look at them and say, oh, this is a sure thing, that's a sure thing. There are some sure things. Even the Democrats concede they're going to lose South Dakota, Montana, and one other that I frankly just drew a blank on. And that would get them to 48. They need 3 more. If Colorado and Iowa were to go, that would certainly cinch it. But there's several other possibilities for the Republicans. They have a good shot in Alaska. They have a good shot in North Carolina. They have a very good shot in Arkansas.
Okay, we're going to have to call it there, unfortunately, because we are all out of time, but we're all going to be watching the numbers from the Quinnipiac Poll and so many others. It's a busy day for everybody. Peter Brown, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
We'll look at more of the numbers when Midpoint continues.
Rob.